Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. Um, and this is a special show today because it's part two of the interview. This great guest has so much to share, great experiences, and really heartwarming stories that you couldn't do it in one show. So if you watched last week, you're going to really enjoy it this week. And if you haven't watched last week, watch today and then still go back and go watch that. And it will all make sense. So welcome, Zen. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Glenda. It's such a pleasure to be here again. I'm doing great, and I feel so comfortable in the Dragon's Den.
There you go. Thank you. Dragons have gotten a bad rap. They
Well,
really have.
with, so here's a little bit of information in my study of dragons, right?
Mhm.
Actually, Kumaras is what they're
Mars.
known as globally, and
Mhm.
that name appears as Quetzalcoatl in Central America, Amaru in South America, Jedi in Egypt, Amaru in no, that's South America. Trying to think of Naga in India, and of course, dragon in
Mhm.
China.
Mhm.
Kumaras, according to Ascended Masters anyway, are wisdom. They're like universal codex keepers.
Mhm. Yes.
So we, I say we, that slipped. Um, Yes, I am. I saw myself unfold as a white dragon during meditation with three other people, and they saw me do it internally as well.
Right.
So, what do you do with those kinds of things, right? Um, it's
I'll
that,
join you. We. So.
you're in awe, you wonder, you're curious, you test what's that
Mhm.
mean, and then you just, like again, like the Ascended Masters say, you to know, to dare, to do, and to be silent. And
Mhm.
that silent is like dissolving into the nothingness in order for truth to emerge. And you just
Yes,
get out of the way.
exactly. Perfectly said.
But
So,
what's that mean, right?
uh,
And how do you experience it personally?
uh,
Well, for me, my life's been full. I've had a magical mystery tour since birth, orphan, adopted, going to the light at 18, introduced as Ashtar and Athena's son in front of 20 or 250 people in 2000. That was whew. And what's that mean, right? That all started, back in the 1988. I published an article in Arizona Lighten, which was a metaphysical newspaper that was distributed around Arizona. I happened to be delivering it to
mm,
other metaphysical bookstores and new age shops and things like that around the state. It also gave me an opportunity to ask questions of psychics that I didn't know and didn't
mm,
know me, just so I could test my truth, right?
right, right.
Whatever, or just find out. And specifically, I was given the name Zendor just prior to all of this. And as I did this, well, I'll put that on pause for a second. Come swing back around to the circle. In the um, paper, when my article came out, right below it was a display ad for Stephen and April White, who channeled Ashtar and Athena.
Mhm.
And I saw that and I went, something inside said, you need to be there. And I was like, okay. So I show up, I'm sitting off in the side of the room, and I'm about 4 or 5 rows back, trying to be, as innocuous as possible. And I'll be darned if during the whole thing, Stephen and April both were staring at me, eyes closed, 90% of the time. So much so that I asked internally, are you guys really looking at me, or am I just imagining this? And as soon as I asked the question for both of them, their eyes popped open. And yes, they were looking directly at me.
Mhm.
So that was really freaky.
Mm, could imagine.
Full body trance channelers, they don't remember shit.
Mhm.
right? And so I'm thinking, and I don't know this. So I go up to them afterwards and ask them, and they're like, no, we don't remember. Well, for me, there was something inside of me that understood everything that they said. Stephen, speaking as Ashtar, was talking about the administration of the Galactic Federation and specifically the Ashtar Command being overseers of the volunteers that are on Earth and several other locations in their sphere of influence, and that they were just there to assist that volunteerism growth and understanding and leading to or toward mission fulfillment for each
Mhm.
individual, right? And then collectively. And then and I understood all that. And then when April got up, she was talking about the community side, the emotional side, the nurturing, the motherly side of stuff. And it was just amazing. I got both of this. Now, years later, I did an EQ test, right? And emotional quotient, for those of you who aren't sure what that is different than IQ. IQ is
Mhm.
about intelligence, EQ is about emotional intelligence.
Right.
And I was right in the middle. So I was perfectly balanced between genders.
Mhm.
And I was like, interesting. Um, so, when you do self-assessments, and I can't tell you how many I've done. Dozens, probably. Everyone that I could find is like, oh, another one? Okay, I'll try it out. And they
Mhm.
all reflected virtually the same thing. So when you're told something enough times, as the same I was done with being Ashtar and Athena's son, I had multiple people express that. And during my journey, right, so delivering the Arizona Light to various locations, I would ask the psychics, hey, what do you get from the name Zendor? Now, I wasn't going by Zen yet.
Right.
That
Right.
happened 2 years later. And so I'd ask, and they'd pause and reflect and respond, oh, yeah, he's the commander of a mothership. Okay, what's that mean?
Mm.
And then in late 89, I was facilitating a UFO discussion group in a couple of, well, it was a New Age discussion group, mostly focused on UFOs and consciousness. And there was a gal that came up to me and asked me to have lunch with her. She needed to talk to me about something. And I'm like, oh, okay. So during lunch, I asked the same question. What do you get from the name Zendor? She says, oh, yeah, he's commander of a mothership, and I know which one.
Ooh.
Okay, do I want to know this? Right? And I figured, yeah, why not? Okay, which one? And she says, the New Jerusalem. I still,
Okay.
what do you do with that? Put it on the shelf and wait. So a couple years later, I'm hosting a TV show called One World, and I'm using Zendor underneath my given name as a subtitle. And half a dozen shows in, I did 120 at that time. A guy steps out from behind the camera and he calls me Zen, and it stuck. Um, so, it was one of those things where you acquiesce to
Mhm.
what happens because you got no choice. It just, yes, it feels right, even though there's some resistance to it because it
Right.
is coming from an unknown spot and you're being confronted or feel like you're being confronted.
Right.
And I had issues with people who were changing their names in the 70s. So I had to confront myself with that as well.
Mhm.
And, you learn over time that judgment, condemnation, criticism, none of that's all ego.
Mhm.
And there's no collaboration in that. There's no love in that, which is really what we're all here to do, is to learn how to love and be loved, right? And unconditionally,
Mhm.
right? Which goes back to the Vedas, that we're all divine threads incarnate, connected to source, capable of God
Mhm.
consciousness. Well, what's that mean? That means you're capable of loving unconditionally. And until you do, the rest of the story isn't available to you.
Correct.
It starts with self.
Mhm.
We're our most critical factors. And of those 70 thoughts a day that we have, according to the neuroscientists, probably the majority of them are self-deprecating ones.
Mhm.
knew they were for me for a long time because I was taught that what I had to say was too crazy for people to hear. And I was deemed crazy and insane and, even institutionalized for a while. So, and then I proved, well, became highly functional, 2 master's degrees, worked in the aerospace industry, taught high school for a number of years, did partnering workshops for building road and bridge construction, transformational coaching, demonstrated that worked because I was successful with the clients and helping them achieve their dreams. So, when you have all this evidence, you eventually get to the point where you start to build a little confidence in yourself, not pride.
No.
Totally different.
Right.
Right. And that's another ego-based thing. But the confidence means you know what you know. You still know what you don't know.
Right.
However, you know what you know because you've proven it works time and again.
Exactly.
Now, being willing to put my truth on the chopping block, I finally got angry 2016, and I think we kind of went through some of my history in the previous show. So I'll pick up there and meeting my twin flame Luba at her Kundalini yoga teacher training graduation. She's from Russia, USSR originally. She was trained as a piano pedagogue at one of the most prestigious music schools in the world called the Mussorgsky Music College. And Mussorgsky was a Russian composer that was highly respected, obviously, a school named after him. So when she came to America, she was in a relationship for a number of time and was in the segue out of it when we met. And it was, just that ultimate connection that is there beyond everything. And even when I first introduced myself to her, and as if you haven't noticed, I don't blink a whole lot. That's kind of intimidating to some. It's just me, right? It's a natural.
Right.
And so I'm looking at her, gazing into her eyes, and as I'm saying, I'd like to get to know you better. You want to have coffee, or can I make lunch for us? And she says, "Are you reading me?" And so that was it, right? It's like, yeah, and oh, sorry, I forgot it. I blink very much because, again, I'm insecure, self-reflecting, right?
Right.
Let me pull that back a little bit. Highly insecure and self-reflecting and self-examining, right, as a result. So that began things in when COVID hit. I said to her, I really hope this obsession on self-hygiene and sequestration will get people to sit and self-examine and go inside, ask who they are, why they're here, what they can do, what they're willing to do, what they believe in, all those kinds of self-examining questions. And it turns out that for some, that occurred. And then in and our lives actually got better. I had coaching clients pick up. I had some web clients. I do web design and development as well. And our lives didn't change. They got better. We didn't change anything. Of course, we both worked out of the house, she being a piano teacher. And she had her, Boston piano in the front room. And then I eventually had a drum set that was next to it. And so we're both percussionists, right? But she's a little more melodic. And with the two of us, she's Piscean and I'm Cancerian. So there's a lot of water there. And the fish just kind of swims around all over the place and around me. And I'm, it's Cancer trying to catch it, right? And I felt that way for a while. And then we finally, settled into this deeper nature of being with each other that we recognize individual, instantly to begin with. But once that happens, then what, right? Then you got to learn how to live with each other.
Exactly.
The Russian culture being completely different than American culture, there was a lot of culture clash there for a while. And the listening, the speaking, the understanding, the misunderstanding that occurred, and the terse words that would come out of that because both of us get pissed off because the other didn't understand.
Right.
And so we worked on that, and gradually came together from that place of faith, love, and trust in each other and the universe for putting us together in the first place. And it was like the massive reunion, right? She ended up being told by her ET guide. Oh, here's a little story. So I think our third time together, we were talking about ETs, and she was telling me about having this vision of seeing an Arcturian kind of have his face come out of this gray screen. And she was asking what her purpose is.
Right.
And he says to her, mother and teacher. Right? And then he pulls back into the wall. So she's telling me about that, and it's still not quite sure who he is or what he is. And I said, well, would you like to meet him? Okay. I was also trained as a hypnotherapist, so I had the ability of taking people into places where those kinds of things occur. So I laid down on the couch, and I took her under and introduced her to the process. And as she descended the stairs and opened up the door, there was this big party of cherubs, and they were all dancing around, all happy and stuff, and I said, so have your guide step forward and introduce himself.
Right.
So one steps up, introduces himself as Nick. And then before I could get the question out, because my next question was, now ask him to show you his true form.
Right.
So ask him, and then she says, he's Arcturian. Right? So that began that, and this, interrelationship, and I can't remember if I told the story in the first round of being part of a series of first contact meetings on board, presumably the New Jerusalem, and I emceed this 4-night process, and there were hundreds of different races in this room, auditorium. And it was just amazing. And I had different perspectives as the whole thing. And of course, you think it's a dream or a vision, you don't know. And you wonder, it's like, is this really going on? Well, somewhere it did, because I experienced it.
Right.
Now, again, what do you do with that? So I held back, and then, a few weeks after it happened, this was in February of 2001, there was a channeling that went out across the net, and it talked about the Council of 300, which was this meeting. And I'm like, interesting. I don't know if I could ever, openly talk about it, because people wouldn't believe me, because it's all weird shit anyway. So, then comes Luba, and she's had her own experience. She had an orb show up at her window when she was 8 years old, and she just felt this tremendous unconditional love from it. And it was during a thunderstorm. It wasn't all lightning, right? Which some people might say. It was an entity of some, and it shared this energy with her. Now, Lubov, Lubob in Russian, actually means love. So go figure.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
And what better mother and teacher than someone who's named Love? Now, it's living that. That's the challenge, right? Because people are such idiots. And not to judge them, just to acknowledge that there's a lot of low-level consciousness that hasn't chosen to rise up yet.
Yes.
And this is what you and I are doing. We're helping nudge that, to share stories of the weird stuff, and have folks look at their own experiences and think, well, maybe I'm not so weird. Maybe there are others like me. And this is what One World and a New World is all about, which is the background that I use on the show there. In 2021, Luba came to me and said, you really need to start talking to people again. I had a bunch of my old shows, 18 of my old shows up on YouTube from the 90s. And of course, she went through pretty much every one of them, vetting me right after we met, right? She went to the net, did her research. And I'm glad she did, right? Because it was either going to scare her or draw her or make her curious.
Right.
And it made her curious. So once she got to know me a little bit more, and we came together and at a heightened level,
Mm-hmm.
she said, you know, you really need to start talking to people again, and you're brilliant. You got stuff to say. People love you. And I was like, wow, you really feel that way? It was cool. I'm ready. And because I was just waiting for that, because I knew it was going to be a labor of love. It wasn't going to have any financial thing. Matter of fact, it was probably going to cost me some money to do it, which it has. And yet I wanted to be able to take the old show, which the format for it was I interviewed people across the gamut of human experience, from a woman who had been homeless and gone through a homeless transitional facility,
Mm-hmm.
to a city council person for the city of Phoenix.
Okay.
And, you know, there was another guy, Kai D, who was the original Wo Fat on Hawaii Five-0.
Okay.
Had a doctorate in theology.
Wow.
Now, he provided a very interesting experience for me. A couple of years after I interviewed him, he passed away. And one morning, it was Tuesday morning, about 10 a.m., I'm sitting at my desk having a moment of meditation, and I find myself conversing with him internally. And I could see him and everything. I would see his face anyway. And then I realized, oh, you know, Kai, am I holding you back from some appointed duty? Because I know you got to be busy over there.
Mm-hmm.
And this big booming voice, same one I heard as a child say, hey, you,
Mm-hmm.
old, right? It says, there are many worlds. And on that Z, my whole guest house shook. Now, it was cement slab block construction.
Ooh.
Right. It wasn't wood frame on a, you know.
Right.
And so I kind of sat with that. And then I was on, like I said, Tuesday morning at 10. Thursday morning, I was at my girlfriend's house in Scottsdale, and there was a Scottsdale Progress paper on their table. And I never opened the paper up, but something said open it up. So I listen usually. And sometimes I regret it later. I opened it up, and the first what do you call them, headline I see about 2/3 down the paper is FAA announces sonic boom. I'm like, oh, interesting. So I start reading the article, and it says Tuesday morning around 10 a.m., same time, the FAA office got flooded with calls wondering about this boom, whether it was an explosion or what. And so they decided they were going to announce that it was a sonic boom. Second paragraph. However, Luke Air Force Base, Sky Harbor Airport, and Williams Air Force Base, which was still operational at the time, could not identify its source.
Okay.
Well, we know that there's a lack of disclosure sometimes and things happen. Here's what's the synchronicity about, right? Same time, same event, same boom, right? Others heard it, felt it, not just me. So was this a dimensional click where something happened? Right? And it just felt like a shudder instead of a click.
Right.
And so, you know, that kind of stuff. When you have those things happen, it's like, okay, what? And you go on. And yet it's still in your file, because we're nothing but a supercomputer with a bunch of file systems that sometimes we learn how to access. Most of the time we don't. And yet we're capable. Right? That's the God consciousness. Right. So once the old show, who are you? How'd you get where you're at? What prompted you to do what you're doing? What fears did you encounter? What prompted you to do what you're doing from both inner and outer perspectives? What fears did you encounter? Most importantly, how did you overcome them? And then how do you see that fitting in the common human experience around you? And then what advice and what evidence do you see of a global community developing? And then, and so we did over 120 shows with that theme. Then in 2021, I started doing the new one, One World in a New World, because we're creating a new normal now.
Right.
It is a new world. Whether it's a new world order, we haven't figured that one out yet. However, in this process, it gave me the opportunity to, first of all, be able to tap the 30 years of experience prior that gave me the ability to ask better questions. Hopefully, gave me a little more wisdom in the process. Sometimes I think it's more wisdom, D-U-M-B, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, and stuff just pops in from time to time, and you just have to listen and be attentive. So this new version allowed me to ask others what their inner experience was when they first became aware that there was more than just this world, that there was an interconnectedness of some kind that they were able to experience, whether they were able to articulate it or not, or share their experience. Some did, some didn't. Some had the same experience as me, institutionalized and all that kind of stuff. And yet it was important to show that these kinds of things are probably ubiquitous in our experience. We just don't talk about it because we don't want to be seen in any way but perfect. Right. And anytime you give an opportunity to be seen as crazy, weird, insane, whatever, right? People are going to jump on it.
Right.
Because they want to set themselves up to be better than you in most cases. That's ego.
Yeah.
And why we do that? Well, we're taught to do that. We've been taught to do that for millennia. Even the patriarchal system put women down when they first introduced the concept that women came from Adam's rib. How ridiculous. They don't talk about Lilith, who supposedly kicked Adam out of the garden to begin with because he was an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? So, so anyway, all of this stuff is shifting now, and especially with AI and being able to query and the quantum computing and now showing that, yes, there is a multidimensional aspect because this is what the computers are doing. Well, what do you think we're doing? Right? The recursive function that they have, self-inquiry to problem solve. That's what we do. Except we don't trust our answers because we're not trained to stay with them or to trust them. We're trained to listen to everybody else and be codependent on, especially in America. Russians, not the same, right? They are straightforward, tell you what they feel. They don't give a shit. It's up to you to either accept or not. They don't care, right? They just want truth, honesty, integrity, those kinds of things that we long for. They're already doing it. Maybe that's why maybe that's why they are our perceived arch enemy, is because they're fuller of authenticity and integrity than we are. How often do you hear somebody give their word and then break it in America?
More than I like to admit.
Right. And my word is the only thing I have. Like, when I met Dr. Mitchell in 97 when I was producing Event, he saw that he could trust me. And he said, I want to tell you this story, but you can't tell anybody after you're dead.
Right.
I didn't. 20 years I waited. Because why? I gave him my word.
Exactly.
And so now in One World and the New World, all the different people, they're thought leaders all over the world, they're authors, they're AI generators, they're patent owners, they're corporate leaders, they're strategic advisors, they're just all over the place, right? Multiple races, multiple arenas. And every one of them has a story to tell about their inner experience and how they first became aware that there's more than what they thought or were told. And then being able to take that and through our conversations, explore them, share experiences, swap stories, and of course I got a lot of stories to tell. And a lot of those were able to reflect on what they had said and take their understanding up a notch and their ability to apply that in ways that gave them even more resonance internally, and then making their understanding practical in their work and lives and personal relationships, and discussing how this process all takes place within them and around them,
Mm-hmm.
and the results of that. So after 4 years, there's a lot of data there. I've got 208 podcasts now that I think I've got, oh gosh, the first 3 years I used the AI magic, and I took all my transcripts, I plugged it into AI. I said, okay, I want you to query these 8 different subject areas in each one
Right.
and reflect on what the guest shared. And then at the end of each of the year compilations, I had the AI do a golden thread chapter. What was consistent throughout them all in those 8 areas?
Nice.
Amazing material. It's called One World, Uniting Voices, Conversations for a United World.
Okay.
Those are available on Amazon. Matter of fact, I've got, I think, 45 books now up on Amazon. And thank you for that, sharing the link. And, it's amazing how much you can do when you understand how to use micro moments and pay attention to breadcrumbs and flow and allow yourself just to be present. Fortunately, I type 120 when I'm really, flying with very few mistakes. And so I was able to, in the downtimes when I was doing partnering workshops and coaching, I have a lot of time, spare time.
Right.
And so I devoted that to writing. And once I figured out how to do the self-publishing, it became easier and easier. And, formatting, publishing, marketing, creating videos, because I've got the tech skills. It's fun to be creative,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let alone be able to share the stuff,
Right.
right? Some of it is way out there. Some of it is way in here. And some of it, like servant leadership, I'm sorry, Navigating Holistic Growth, A Servant Leader's Guide is one of my books. And so
Okay.
second master's in organizational management, I understand how, I have the paper that says I understand. So I already understood it because I'd worked with multiple events and large numbers of people, and proved that I could do some amazing stuff.
Right.
And the thing is, I never thought about doing amazing stuff when I was in process of doing it. I was just having fun doing what I could, and what I didn't know I couldn't do, I figured out, right? And being able just to, I guess, fearlessly leap off the cliff, not knowing you can fly, but finding out you can.
There you go.
And just by making that effort, most people, and I find this true throughout my coaching, which is really cool because I just started I revamped my website because I took a 3-year hiatus, 3.5-year hiatus from coaching. And so with BeTheDream.com now, I'm sharing this opportunity to structure and find out and be more involved using this recursive function capacity that we have, because I've learned it. I've experienced it. I can share that and and build an individualized plan that has very simple action steps, right? And this is where most of us fall short, right? We, first of all, don't believe our dream can happen. Second of all, fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Third is probably fear of success, because what would we do if we actually proved ourselves to be true?
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty scary place. And what would happen? Gosh, can I accept that about me? Am I that worthy? Well, this is self-love. Yeah, you're worthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So those kinds of things become available And navigating through that is what I am best at. Just being still, asking questions, being still, using that empathy that I've had since I was a kid
Mm-hmm.
to tune in, let go. In la catch is a great phrase. In la catch la kin is the entire phrase. It's a Mayan phrase and essentially means I am another you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you enter the quantum field, we are already in the quantum field.
Exactly.
Right? We're already interconnected. All we have to do is take that leap of understanding and allow it to actually be present and step into it. Well, these are processes. This is training. This is a discipline beyond any other discipline that you can imagine. You think martial arts or learning piano, is like a martial art. Um, it's really tedious and disciplined. Well, this is even more so because you have to monitor how you think.
Mm-hmm.
And how
Yes.
you think is usually based on past experiences. Well, in the recursion function pattern,
Mm-hmm.
you dissolve into nothingness. No past, no future. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have dreams and visions and plans and things like that.
Right.
It means that you're not attached to either. So you're completely emotionally free. What do you think happens in that place? Right?
Everything and
Exactly.
anything.
Yeah, everything and nothing,
Right.
And so in that process of going into that place, then you go into it with curiosity, intent, attention on particular questions or whatever, breadcrumbs, next steps, whatever that may be. And with time, they emerge. It's not muck enlightenment, right?
Right.
You're not going through the McDonald's drive-in to pick up your certificate, right? It
Right.
takes it. And, it's taken me 50 years to be able to talk like this, for example,
Right.
and be heard from where I'm speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for providing that opportunity because you do, I realize I'm, a talking head right now and you're not saying a whole lot. However, you're holding space for me. And I honor that.
Thank you.
So what do you do in that space?
In that space, I create love and I protect it. And I make sure that the person is allowed to say whatever they want to say with no judgment, no preconditions, just let them be.
Now, what would happen if we all did that? Right?
This would be a beautiful world.
And it can be.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things. So back to the next step. So during my third year of production of One World in a New World, I get tapped on the shoulder to submit paperwork for Planetary Citizens and apply for nonprofit status. Now, I had the website since 2010.
Right.
And I had built it on, showcasing world servers. And doing that gave me the opportunity to, learn what others are doing and connect with them to some degree, although with my activities, I didn't really have time to reach out and get to know everybody that well. Then in 2023, August, I get tapped on the shoulder. December, we get our nonprofit status. And it's not only, the 501c3 is a standard nonprofit status.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's an additional nomenclature called a 509A2 that allows you to do business as a nonprofit, such as book sales, workshops, seminars, whatnot, right? So all of that, your fees or contributions are all tax deductible as a result, which is way cool, right? And that's using systems that are available, that are in place, that most of us don't tap into because, again, we're afraid to, and it costs a little bit of money to do it. It's not that expensive. But then what do? Right? So 2024, I spent entirely revamping the website using what I had been given to as a foundational model, which was basically spiral dynamics, and being able to then use the co-creation wheel, 12 sectors of society,
Mm-hmm.
to initiate the process of becoming a holistic system, getting the sectors to talk to each other, right? So this is the next phase. Phase one of our strategic plan was using One World, the New World to provide the data that, yeah, this is a worthy endeavor, because everybody's, not everybody, but there's enough who are saying, yes, this inner world, this interconnection, this interconnectivity is real. And
Mm-hmm.
with the quantum science saying, yeah, we're all energy, we're all waveforms. It's just how do we harmonize? Well, in order to do that, you've got to dissolve into nothingness with the intention of coming out more resonant.
Exactly.
And so this is the process that's taking place. Now, with the first phase, then the second phase is to go into panel discussions with people from these different sectors and talk about how we can work together and figure out, how does what I'm doing affect you, and what you're doing affect me? Does it? What are the subtle activities of where it actually is effectively interactive,
Mm-hmm.
not just interconnected, but interactive?
Right.
And then, kind of presenting the moving from good intentions to effective actions. Right?
Okay.
We all have good intentions. We just don't know how to act, and we aren't being really, the role models that we have today and their activity across the media and the world. It's like, come on, guys, don't you know how to get along? We've been around here for millennia. And, it's time we recognize all these boundaries are fictitious. They're illusions. We're one planet, one people,
Right.
right? We are all planetary citizens.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how do we act that way? Well, first of all, you begin figuring it out. The book that came out after I revamped the site, then it was like, okay, you got to write a book, tap on the shoulder. So I wrote another book called Planetary Citizens,
Mm-hmm.
Awakening the Heart of Humanity. And it's got some amazing reviews so far. Jeffrey Mishlove, probably one of my most revered icons in talking to weird people, right? And he wrote that best example of globalism he's ever read. And he said that I'm, a fitting model for carrying on Donald Key's work, the ultimate compliment, right? And then in that process, so I'd interviewed Jeffrey a few months ago, and during the outtakes, there was a conversation about Donald, and he says, I just happen to have Donald's unpublished memoirs.
Ooh.
Would you like a copy?
Oh.
Absolutely.
I'm sure it didn't take you that long. Come on.
So it took about, I don't know, a month and a half or so. I didn't give it a second thought. Jeffrey's pretty dependable on his word, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says he'll do. He does. It may take a while, although, it's not like he doesn't have anything to do. And then, so when I got them, I started reading them, and the one-page bio is like, holy shit, this guy was really connected to the Ascended Master world as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing about that in his professional history, because he was the speechwriter for U Thant, who was the president or executive director for the UN at the time. That's a pretty high-level position.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, he's got all this stuff going. He's, the Alice Bailey groups and the Ascended Master groups and appearances of them to him. that he's describing in his memoirs,
Oof.
and all the people that he met, and Norman Cousins being one of them that he worked with closely for a while. He was even executive director of the Lucius Trust for a little bit, which, these are all really important esoteric slash practical, material. No. So they bridge worlds.
Right.
Let's put it that way, even at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And for most of the public, these were deemed, because they were mostly American, especially, were Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all of the devil.
Yes.
Yes. And so, when you look further into that, just for those of you who might have a Christian base, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I've had direct experiences with Jesus, and I know him to be who he is, right? Not necessarily that he's the savior, right?
Right.
That's something that the patriarchs spun so that they could get in between and act as middlemen, so they could pilfer others and fill their coffers.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, on the other hand, he appeared to me one time and asked to speak through me in front of a group of people, and some of them saw him too internally.
Mm-hmm.
What an honor. And I bawled like a baby before I was able to do it, right? Because I felt totally unworthy. And yet the first thing that he said to me in our private conversation was the same as mine were.
Right.
So that just set me at ease. So those kinds of things. And when you're talking about, Lucifer, for instance, just consider, okay, you got a bunch of non-corporeal beings, council of heaven, if you will, that are, ready to come, ready to go explore their creation.
Mm-hmm.
They can't. There's no way to do it in their formlessness,
Right.
at least at that vibrational level. So who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? No. So Lucifer, angel of Most High, angel of light and music, right? Well, what creates form? Light and sound.
Exactly.
So they're like, hey, Lucy. Hey, Lucy. I'm home. We need somebody to learn how to condense into form. You're the dude. Have at it.
Yep.
So he learns so that he can teach others, right? And then, John the Revelator, right? He's talking about all of these things and apocalypse, right? Which doesn't mean the end of the world. Apocalypse means unveiling knowledge.
Yep.
Right? And we've forgotten that. You ask 9 out of 10 people, they'll say end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
False belief system. This is what we've been taught,
Right.
So back to Satan. Satan's also a fictitious enemy. Why? Because it comes, they took a term from the Greek, which is what John wrote in, and the word was thetan, Thetan, and it means thinker. So we are our own adversary is what it means.
Right.
It's not exterior, although we like to say, and that's not to say there's not reservoirs of energy that when one vibrates at that place, that they become a conduit for it.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
However, that's choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have a free will. You can think, you can put your attention, intention, and interaction anywhere you want.
Very true.
Now, what resonates most, what makes your whole body sing, what makes your heart sing, right? That's really where you want to be. And in doing so, then that takes that adversary and it allows you, like with the recursive function, dissolving into nothingness, you hold paradox.
Right.
You don't have to do anything. Just hold it. Allow it to be, and your directions through it will emerge, because that's how you're designed.
Mm-hmm.
We each, because of our frequency, right back to the betas, we're all divine threads incarnate, connected to source, capable of God consciousness.
Very
So
true.
that means we each have direct access to infinite intelligence specific to our individual frequency,
Yes.
which gives us the capacity to begin to understand that, oh, yeah, we do have a perfected form, fit, and function in the world. We just don't know what the hell it is.
Mm-hmm.
We can't go. Yes, we ask, and these are some of the questions that people ask. I think they ask them rather inauthentically. Oh, what's my purpose?
I know.
Why am I here? Do they really want to know? First
Some
of all,
of them don't. Some of them really don't.
I agree. And yet, what if they did? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's up to the rest of us who do really
Mm-hmm.
want to know
Mm-hmm.
to develop our own direct experience of the process of learning that, and then stick out a hand and help your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, whatever. Since we're all relatives, it doesn't matter who you hold your hand to, right?
Right.
So those kinds of things that evolve, and for me to be in my position now, having been told as a teenager that I'm here to help facilitate a new world order, which I understood it being harmony among people and planet, even at that time, then it's like, wow, we're right on this precipice, and yet it's hard for me not to feel like I want to push and pull my way, right, to get people to look and realize and think, because that doesn't work either. This is one of the things that Ashtar taught me as I was trying to figure out my relationship with him. He says, no push, no pull, just flow. Now that's a really simple statement, right? And there's a
Very.
huge amount of complexity in that.
Yes.
And as a transformational coach now, I've kind of taken that to an integral coach, since I'm
Mm-hmm.
working a lot with spiral dynamics and recursion function, and sharing that information as well as building the action plans, and being really practical about things. You can achieve anything once you figure out how.
Exactly.
Anything's available for you to figure out how. You just got to ask the right questions. And so with my clients, they've got all the information I need. They've got all the facts, figures, connections, and all this. So all I do is draw that out of them and put it into a different order so that it's more easily activated and followable for their own specific individual plans.
Very
And
good.
and these are very, they boil down to simple steps. We oftentimes think of these huge goals and, oh my God, I'll never achieve that because it seems so huge. Well, it's like an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure I'd want to eat an elephant. However,
But it's the idea.
it's funny how the phrases that we have and the ridiculousness of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. One of them I think is take care. How many times you're leaving somebody? Oh, take care.
Yeah.
Why would you want to take care?
Mm-hmm.
But how subconsciously programmed is that? And in reflections of the world, how often do we just want to take from the world and not give anything in response instead of giving care,
Mm-hmm.
sharing what you are, who you are, what you have, what you do without attachment, and then watch the response that the world gives you. You no longer
Mm-hmm.
struggle for what you need because it's there. We're promised, like Jesus said, he came for us to have life and have more abundantly,
Right.
right? We have a direct connect. This is what he taught. He said, don't listen to me. You got a direct connect, use it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's still this reticence to do so because we don't trust. We say we have faith. We don't. We say we have love. we proved that we don't, because we abuse others in all kinds of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
We manipulate others to get what we need. Well, manipulations has two sides. Some of it's good, some of it's not. Right? We're manipulating energy anytime we move or do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the intent of which we do that makes a difference.
Exactly.
So all these things are they just imbue my life with such a dynamicism that it's almost right now. Okay, I can't find the words. Right, and I'm a wordsmith.
Well, it's very hard because you don't use your ego to inflate yourself. So by not using your ego to inflate yourself, you do use your ego to kind of give you a little nudge every once in a while to push yourself because
Yeah, ego's not a
yeah,
bad thing.
no, it's
There's
just
no ego without wego, is what I say. And
right.
one of the phrases I use in the partnering workshops that gets a lot of eyebrows raised.
I am sure. I am sure.
And yet then, once I see those eyebrows, then I realize, okay, now this gives me opportunity because they're curious. What's he
Correct.
mean? Right? That sounds really weird. But what the fuck do you mean? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I talk about how to learn to work together and work through the issues. And this is really what the partnering workshops are about.
Right.
There's issues that are known issues on the job that
Mm-hmm.
have to be dealt with and have solutions ready so that when they happen, these are 2 to 5 year schedules, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have to have these things in place to pull the trigger on when it happens so that there's no work stoppage. There's a work stoppage on that size of a project. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to lose that. And,
That's
so that's the level of concreteness, pun intended, that I get to in working with this stuff. This is what I can do and what I
right.
have done and have the proof of it. So when you have that kind of history,
Mm-hmm.
it builds for a good reputation. Another thing that you talk about ego, that man, I'm constantly just in awe of the recommendations that I get from my guests on One World in the New World. I've got over 150 on LinkedIn that are just freaking amazing. It's like, really, this is, because I hope to do what it is that they reflect that I do.
Right. Right.
And I get out of the way. I never think about it. I'm just present with the guest and paying attention to the energy flow back and forth.
Perfect way of being. That's the way I see it. It is because once you create that space, then not only are they doing whatever they have to do, but you're also learning because there's
Absolutely.
always something
Absolutely.
that was meant for you, even though it was meant in their eyes, was meant for somebody else. You hear it and you're like, oh, I've been waiting for that answer.
Right. Because the first
That's
thing for me, especially in coaching,
mm-hmm.
I self-reflect. I internalize what question that comes out that I need to ask them
Mm-hmm.
for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't live that, what good am I?
You're not authentic then.
Right. And people can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't, what generally happens is that we subvert our feelings for what we think ought to be.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
How do you experience for yourself? Because you're extremely intuitive and you're very conscious. How did you find that process for yourself?
Trial and error. Like of most people.
That's an honest answer,
Yeah.
because it is.
Trial and error. It's, sometimes I would hear the little voice and I would say, no, mm-mm. And slowly I came to understand once you hear the little voice, you should listen, pay attention to what they're saying because they are always directing you to the right place, the right point. And then from there, you have a choice. And there's always choices every step of the way. There's always free will, what you do with it, what you don't do with it. And like you said, you all these people telling you what you did in their life, that means a lot to you, not because it's ego based, but because you're saying to yourself, okay, I am doing what I
I,
set
I
out.
served them to my best
Exactly. Exactly.
because
And
all I
you,
am is a servant. I just, I let go. I get out of my way, hopefully. Sometimes I get in my way. I am human,
we're
right?
human. We're human.
Fallible.
Right.
Um, I do my best to recognize that fallibility and even speak it openly when it's present.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wrong, I think I know something and it turns out I don't. Well, I'll be the first to admit, oh, wow, cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learned, right? And it's like, I have to laugh. So I had one of my first dozen interviews, I think, was Dr. Irvin Laszlo. And he's known as the grandfather of quantum systems thinking. He
Mm-hmm.
was 90 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's written 75 books, I think. And, so that's my mark, right? And, I thought, oh, okay. And I guess my ego showed up because I had some genuine questions. I wanted to know if he had explored the multidimensional side of things and the layered vibratory levels, like for the multiplane awareness and Nepean Close's triadic dimensional distinction vortical paradigm, right? Which
Okay.
both have 9 planes of consciousness, of which we have bodies on that are part of the human bandwidth that we have available. One's experiential, one's a quantum physics paper.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, I'm going to ask him these questions. Didn't really matter, but as I began, I said, in quantum physics, we're told that we're 99% space and 1% material.
Mm-hmm.
And his response was, I would say we are 100% energy. Can't. I mean, it was like, ding, right? Oh, I could have had a V8. What the hell?
Right.
And so, it's like whenever you hear a truth that is undeniable, it resonates in your entire being. You
Mm-hmm.
will have a direct experience of that. That's unquestionable.
Oh yeah. Hits you like a 2x4.
Yeah. Well, that's a little different. I've had enough cosmic two befores upside the head that, that's when you're not paying attention. Because like you said, it's that soft, still, the Bible says it's still small voice,
Yes.
right? It's subtle until you start listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets louder, right? Or like me as a kid, it started out loud. Hey, you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're in this place and for me, the challenge is I see myself in this prophecy fulfillment role. Not that I want to be in that place. It's just I was designed this way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have all these experiences that have led me to this conversation.
Exactly.
So who am I to deny the reality that's expressing itself to me from all kinds of different sources, not only internally? And that's
Mm-hmm.
really where the balance of the internal and external realities that we experience. We live half inside, half outside. Well, are we too big? Do we have too much of an ego to say, oh, that's not me. That's impossible. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. Well, what if you are now, here's another thing. One of the things that I've had to deal with, because initially it's like, oh, wow, you think you're a Messiah? So there's this messianic complex that takes place. And it's with a lot of different people. I can't tell you how many people that have said, oh yeah, I'm reincarnated Imhotep, or I'm reincarnated Mary Magdalene, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that necessary? Are you building yourself up to try to appear bigger than you are to others? You know, ultimately, you need to humble yourself and say, okay, well, what fragment of them is applicable to this life, and how can I be in that place as a servant to it?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, oh, hey, look at me, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other, right? Um, and it's funny, in my DISC assessment, I'm a natural persuading promoter.
Okay.
My adaptive is conductor,
There you go.
right? I've been put in that role so many times. So all of these things, that's another one of those assessments I was talking about.
Uh-huh.
And in that assessment process, you really get to know yourself, and you have to be willing to test your truth, to get to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I question myself constantly. I'm like the ultimate recursive function, right?
Mm-hmm.
Constantly dissolving. Is like, okay, what do we do next?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I now? Because I have different names to different people, and it's confusing to them, I'm sure, right? And yet, it is what it is. And does it matter? Identity doesn't matter. Right?
That's
It may
true.
matter to some, and at a universe scale, there is this frequency arrangement
Mm-hmm.
that needs to congeal, if you will, at this time, because we're all these points of light incarnate, seeking each other, wanting to love and be loved, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that we got a global wake up call with COVID now
Mm-hmm.
to illustrate that, okay, yeah, this is the time. It's the first time in our history that a global event like that's occurred, ever, that in our current history, right? We don't know about Atlantis or Lemuria or
Right.
civilizations before. And yet we also know from history, that at least esoteric history, that the earth has tumbled every 13,000 years. So it's probable that there were civilizations that either collapsed or evolved each
Mm-hmm.
time that tumble happened.
Right.
For me, the only past life that I've experienced, I went into with the intention of viewing the one that's most important to this life. And in that, I initially saw myself, and actually my son in this life was next to me. We were walking through a jungle, and we were dressed in these leather tunics with wide strapped leather sandals that came up almost to our knees. And we're just traipsing through this jungle. And then the next scene, we're building flat top pyramids, this big metroplex. And then the next scene, it's finished. I'm sitting in this big wooden ornate chair in the um, town rectangle, if you will.
Okay.
It was a flat top, platform with multiple stone steps, and then a dirt area all around it, and then steps going up the other side. It was like a big party. It's like we were finished. We were all celebrating.
Right.
In the next scene, I'm in a room with a screen, and on the screen is Ashtar. And he tells me, you need to evacuate everyone as quickly as possible. And in the next scene,
Mm-hmm.
I'm viewing it from a different perspective. I'm seeing the whole valley, and there's all these ships that are flying around evacuating everybody. Then the next scene I see is this huge mile-high wall of water that just decimates everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next scene, I'm sitting in a cave with stone steps below. I'm in a chase lounge. There's a woman with dark, wavy hair, a little, past shoulder length. She's got a palm frond. She's waving it over me. I look like I'm in my mid 30s, early 40s, pristine shape. And
Mm-hmm.
then I move into my body. And once I enter my body, I'm exhausted. And I just want to leave.
Mm.
So I close my eyes and then I see 4 points of light close to me, one off in the distance, and it's like my portal for exit. And I leave. And that was it. So a couple of weeks later, there's a full moon, and I'm living right next to the Phoenix Mountain Preserve. And so I step across the fence and walk up the trail, and I'm hiking up a butte, and I turn to look, full moon, as I said, and I see the silhouette of the mountains, and it looks identical to what I saw in my vision.
Oof. Ooh.
So that made me kind of curious and looking a little deeper. In Phoenix, we have this layer of what they call caliche, clay, and
Okay.
it's highly packed silt,
Right.
basically. So it was like this was an ocean bottom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there you go.
And why is it called Phoenix? Crash and burn to rise again.
Right.
A lot of people, when I first moved here, there were 30,000 people moving into the valley and 20,000 leaving because it couldn't handle the energy,
Mm.
which meant they couldn't find their way
Correct.
professionally, personally, or whatever.
Right.
I got to say, man, that it's intense here. 122 degrees in the summer. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the winters are just magnificent, right? In that understanding, this energy, highly condensed, highly um, challenging. So you really get your mettle tested when you're willing to step up to it. And yeah, you can be afraid of achieving your dreams and find a job, which usually means just over broke,
Mm-hmm.
and live your life that way. You essentially are living as a slave then. That's not to say that, slavery is necessarily a bad thing. I feel like a slave to the universe, right? But it's a willing one,
Right.
fully conscious of what I am attempting to do and what I'm willing to be in order to do that. And with others, it's an unconscious thing usually. It's a skill set driven. You go to school, you develop a skill set, you get the job, yada yada yada, right? Well, now
Mm-hmm.
those same skill sets are applicable. It's like anytime from my coaching and career change people, right?
Right.
You've got a skill set. How do you take that and put it someplace else? Right? What's the transition? What's the transferable skills in that you can now take and put someplace else and be just as effective, if not more so? And imagine if you had that skill set that then you were able to turn and use for yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you're an island to yourself. That means
Mm-hmm.
you've got the ability to now collaborate with others with your skill set to develop a community.
Right.
And that, I believe, is what's taking place now throughout the world, especially with remote work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Companies are realizing the value of leaving people at home.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, there was huge concerns about productivity.
Right.
Oh, they're not in the office. They're not forced to work, so they're going to slack off. Well, the opposite happened. Amazed everyone. So how good are these predictive structures then?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How little do they think of human beings to say that kind of crap?
Yep.
What do you think? How do you think we need to navigate that in order to have some sense of fulfillment and maybe even change the world?
Well, personally for me, I follow my passion. I just, as soon as something sparks something in me, I know that that's the direction I have to go. I have to explore it. I have to go for it. I have to just take whatever steps I got to go to there.
How many
And
times does it actually make sense when you first feel it, right? It doesn't.
it does not at all. No. I mean, in my 20s, I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to be an attorney. Then I ended up being a paralegal. And then all of a sudden, from a paralegal to esoteric. And it's like, how did I go from all thinking up here to then not thinking really, just letting things happen?
Right.
And just that it didn't make sense back then. It makes sense now. But back then I was like, what? No. And they made it a point. They fought with me so much and I fought with them so much that they caused disease in me, so I had to stop working. Then they caused a big hurricane, which was not even supposed to be anywhere near the town that I lived in, and right through it. I'm like, really? Couldn't get my attention. All I heard was, "We tried."
Yeah.
uh-huh.
This brings up an interesting proposition. What do you think would happen? Understanding we're all part of the quantum field, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we shifted our thought-atmospheric intentions and
Mm-hmm.
relevant thinking to a more, how can I be in harmony with myself and others? Do you think that might change weather patterns?
Yes. I believe it would change weather patterns. It would make it a lot easier to breathe. I think even the quality of air would change. The vegetation would get healthier. We would actually have more oxygen in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Our lungs would get healthier. There wouldn't be so much illness and disease and trouble and crisis and blockages and floods and hurricanes and snowstorms that you can't even see out of the window because it's completely, So, yes, I do believe it will be a lot better if we just.
How do you think that change could be affected?
The only way I could think of is just keep spreading it and hoping that people start igniting their own thoughts that way, igniting their own passion.
That leads right back into planetarycitizens.net.
There you go.
Right. This is a model. I'm not saying it's the model. It is a model that is full of that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Once we begin to consider thinking that way.
Mm-hmm.
And as sense making, one of the things I hadn't thought about this. So I guess it was about a month ago, I got a notice that millionpodcasts.com awarded me the number 10, awarded One World in a New World,
Mm-hmm.
number 10 spot of the 50 top sense-making podcasts for 2025.
Wow. That's a great honor.
I don't know who the heck they are, and yes, right? I mean, just to be noticed like that, it was like, okay, somebody's noticing and being awarded. And then some of the activity, I'm involved with an organization called thinkers360.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm rated number 10. For a while, I was number 4 of the top 10 in coaching as a thought leader.
Mm-hmm.
Be the Dream was mentioned as in the top 25 innovative companies for 2025. So these kinds of things are like, okay, now I got to live up to that, right?
The pressure, no pressure at all.
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Under pressure. And it's funny how, so many things, just thinking about that song line, how often, uh, and this may just be me, I think there's others like me, being a drummer, music has uh, been a huge part of my life. I feel like many songs were written directly to me and for me to
Me too.
glean the information and understanding at such a deep level that it could only be put in that framework for me to grok it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, who are you going to talk to? Right? It resonates, you get it. It's like, oh my gosh. And and there again, what do we do with it? Well, you be it as much as possible. That's all you can do. It's like, okay, I recognize that. I embrace that. What can I do with it? One of the things that reminds me, and no, that's not NLP, lying, scratching my nose. Okay. Well, I've had training there too. I know that's training. Yeah, the fun we can have knowing ourselves and the systems of which we are judged by. So one of the greatest, I love Journey and Rush. Rush, it was like Neil's words have always impacted me. And I feel like Cinderella Man, right? And to just, be in that place. The one thing that I've never been able to do is master Neil's riffs. I can pretty much do that with most other drummers, but man, he's so well, probably because he wrote the lyrics and feels everything. He knows exactly where to put stuff.
Right.
And I've got a huge kit. It's not as big as his. However, I can play a lot of different styles and keep up with, even put fills in where others didn't. And yet to ascend to that level, and I was heartbroken when I found out that he had a brain tumor and died and was in process, right? Because they've just been, what a triumvirate, right? And some of the bands that I played in three-piece, right, are just phenomenal. We added a fourth one night. We had there were three of us and a keyboard. So I was on drums. We had a guitarist and two guitarists actually. One had a synth that basically had a wall of sound that he could create, including the bass lines. And a guy that played keyboards that had a sampler. And so he had his little 3.5-inch floppies, right, that he would plug in. And wow, this was the fourth time that we got together. And okay. So we all took some mushrooms.
Okay.
And we recorded it too. And the tunes that were just so intricately connected, the timing, the fills, the pauses, it was just freaking amazing. Now, we didn't know that while we were playing it. Right? We were just playing.
Right.
The listening of it afterwards was, and this happened not just with those four. We called him the keyboardist Leisure Suit Larry because he always wore a leisure suit. And with the other two and another guitarist and I played together for a decade and a half. I think we've got 9 CDs total of things we recorded. And some of the stuff that happened, just improv, which is just amazing. Well, this is when you have, and this is difference between people who read sheet music and can play well, and who know their instrument and can feel their way through.
Well,
and this is where Luba has challenges, right? Because she's classically trained, which is as intricate as you can imagine.
I know, I'm a piano player.
Okay. So, and she can sight read anything.
and make almost zero mistakes. And this got her accolades when she was playing professionally. You know, she's a teacher still.
Right.
However, she was playing for the choral and dance department at Arizona State and University, and then UC Irvine for a little bit. Well, at UC Irvine, she got requested by Mikhail Baryshnikov and several other Russian dance troupes, ballet,
Mm-hmm.
because of her ability to sight read.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost impeccable. Well, when you have that kind of skill, imagine where you're at internally too. Right? You're ripping
Mm-hmm.
up everything because you can.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going as deep as anything because that sense. I mean, she learned the solfeggio scale, right, at 6 years old, something like that. So all of these patterns, the structures, the training she got for understanding composers, societal situations at the time, cultural things,
Mm-hmm.
the dynamics of the music, the pianissimo, forte, and all of those, the kinds of things. When she plays, it's just freaking amazing. And I am so blessed. I get to sit in my loft
Mm-hmm.
and do my work, right, while she's teaching and or practicing. She's taking her she's getting her certification as a national music teacher for the National Music Teachers Association.
Oh, good for her.
So she's been wanting to do it for years and has the capacity, but like me, she's insecure, right? So, and
It's our human side.
oh yeah, especially I think when you're highly trained, you're a perfectionist
Mm-hmm.
of yourself. There's also the flip side of very, very deep insecurity that comes along with that because you don't want to be wrong
Mm-hmm.
or inauthentic or to miss a beat.
Right.
Because to you, it's glaring when it happens. To others,
I don't even notice.
exactly. Right. And yet this is what drives us to having the level of professionalism that we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a phenomenal lifestyle to have as twin flames that continually challenge each other to be our best,
Yes.
even when it hurts.
Yeah, I have my twin
Well,
flame with
it
me.
does sometimes, right?
Oh, I have my twin flame with me, so I know.
Yeah,
There are times where I'm like, oh, mm-hmm. And
yeah,
then I think about it. And I'm like, okay, wasn't exactly maybe phrased in the right way, but
sure.
it got me thinking.
Right.
So,
And the first thing we do is we get triggered and we want to argue and
oh
defend
yes,
ourselves,
yes,
right?
yes.
So that, for
Mhm.
your listeners, is a good indication for you to be extremely observant of when that happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
You get triggered like that and you want to defend yourself, you're out of center. It's not about them, it's about you.
Exactly, exactly. Very so true.
Can you be patient and quiet enough just to listen
Mm-hmm.
without wanting to defend yourself? You know,
Without even wanting to respond.
yeah, it's like Albert Brooks, right? Defending your life.
Mm-hmm.
It was hilarious, right? And yes, that's what we do.
Yes, yes, yes. So I hate to do this, but we are over time, but that's okay.
Well, you know what? That we kind of just settled into that rather than having it abruptly like we did the last time. Like time over. So what? You know.
So I want to thank you again. And of course, again, everybody just look at the description. All of the links are going to be there. So follow him, go find out more about him and what he does. And
Put me to the test.
like always, thank you very much, Zen. This has been phenomenal. And of course, anytime you want to come back, the invitation is open. And to our audience, we love you. We send much blessings. And as always, I always end this way.
I have a great one I'd like to close with.
Go ahead.
Don't mind. There's this process that, you know, you can picture yourself, make a list of people who you have issues with, right? Who trigger you constantly. And meditate with each one, visualize their face, look into their eyes, and say with authenticity, I love you. Our purpose is oneness.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.